Tell them your name.
Hola. Bye. Hola, me llamo Jeremiah.
Our next learning target, we're taking a look at radicals. So here's a little bit of vocab surrounding radicals. First of all, you recognize the radical sign. You've seen square roots before, and those are the only roots that we're going to be practicing with. As you get into Algebra 2, you may see higher roots, and then you'll see a different number sitting here. That's called the index. Again, for now, our index will always be 2 because we're only going to be looking at square roots. The other part of the radical is what's called the radicand, and that's what you're taking the square root or the root of. Our essential question today is, why do we need to simplify roots? We do have calculators that allow us to punch them in and get an approximate value, but there are a lot of times that we want an exact answer, and we always give our answer in simplest form. If our answers are not in simplest form, then we aren't able to easily compare whether or not the answers are the same. In order to simplify radicals, we need to understand how the square root works. So what we're doing is looking for a perfect square factor of 8. We can split 8 up as 4 times 2. Radicals also have a property where as long as it's multiplication or division, this does not work if there's adding or subtracting under the radical sign. But if there's multiplication or division, you can split it up as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. 4 is a perfect square, so we're going to take the square root of 4, and then we have 2 times the square root of 2. Our radical is in simplest form when there is no longer a perfect square factor under the radical sign. Let's take a look at this again. So we've got the square root of 75, so we can split this up as 25 times 3. Again, we can split it up under two different radicals, the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. The square root of 25 is 5, so we have 5 times the square root of 3. Now we're going to take a look at what to do if there's already a coefficient out front. We're going to follow the same steps that we did before. Now for 48, you may not easily recognize what the perfect square factor is, so one way to get there is to do a factor tree. You probably do recognize that 48 is 6 times 8. Keep creating your factor tree until you have prime numbers. 6 is 2 times 3, 8 is 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. Once we have our factor tree, we look for pairs of numbers. So I have a pair of 2's here, and I have another pair of 2's here. So we can think about those as 2 squared. So we've got our -3 coefficient, and then we have the square root of 2 squared times 2 squared times 3. The square root and the square cancel each other out. So our first term becomes 2. And remember, everything's multiplication. So we're still multiplying when we pull these 2's out. Here, again, we have the square root of 2 squared. So we're going to multiply by another 2. And the 3 is what didn't have a pair. So that's what's left over under the radical. Then we simply multiply everything together on the outside. So -6 times 2 is -12 times the square root of 3. This one, again, you may not recognize the perfect square factor right away. So we're going to start our factor tree. It's even, so I know that 2 will go into 98. 2 goes into 98 49 times. Here you may recognize that 49 is our perfect square factor. So we can split this up as 8 times the square root of 49 times 2, splitting it up again as the square root of 49 times the square root of 2. The square root of 49 is 7. Again, we have all multiplication, so we're going to multiply the 8 by 7 to get 56 times the square root of 2. This last one is an error analysis, so I'm going to make a mistake. It's your job to find and fix the mistake. On this one, I recognize a perfect square factor of 72 as 9. 9 times 8. So I can split up my radical as the square root of 9 times the square root of 8. Multiplying by the square root of 9, which is 3. 9 times 3 gives me 27 times the square root of 8. There was a mistake made on this one. If you have trouble finding it, we can talk about it in class.